The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Whether you're new to sales or a lifetime veteran, the Blackbelt Sales Podcast will sharpen your sword and guide you to master the art of sales. And now, here's your host, the ninja himself, Gene Slade.
Hey, thanks for joining us again today. I've got my main man, Don Johnson, in the studio. Am I pointing the right way? I am. Sweet. Welcome, the old man, back to the studio.
Old man. There we are.
Don, old man Johnson down there.
Yeah.
Hey, what qualifies you to be an old man?
Oh, no, don't go into that joke. Don't go into that joke.
I didn't even know that was a joke. I guess maybe I'm not there yet.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can approach that one, but the joke is what makes a dirty old man.
Oh,
and the answer is just 30 years. We're just the same. We're just the same 30 years later. We're just guys. So
with less filters, I imagine.
Could be that too. So yeah, just takes 30 years to become a old man. So I'll just stick with that. We'll just say it nicely today. So,
well, Don, we're just coming off of our most recent Mansion Blackbelt Sales Training event. How did you enjoy that event?
Man, it was wonderful. Love having the guys out. Well, we have 20 guys in the room training. 20 is a great size. I mean, obviously we could do 30, you could do 30 or 40, but 20 worked out to be a great size. A lot of one-on-one, going through the words to say, the scripting, the role playing. It's one thing to hear someone say things, and it's another to actually process it in your brain and be able to say it yourself. It happens that way all the time. What are the 6 ways to do? And then you ask them and they struggle. But you've heard me say it a dozen times, but saying it yourself is totally different. Man, I loved it. Had some great conversations. We see some guys coming back with some results, and I'm just excited to hear about those results when guys come back and pay for their trip in the first week. Okay, maybe 2 where they've been back for 3 days. Today's day 4 back in the field after, but some have paid for their trip in the first, on the revenue side for the company in the first 3 days, day. So excited to see that.
From Eddie, that was like, man, the guys are absolutely on fire. Yeah. And one of his guys was my favorite transformation. His name's Tommy. And for those of you that don't know, we do different things at different events, but the last 2 events, I have had my personal barber come in and stay with us at the mansion and give 15, 16, 20 haircuts. And Tommy came in with big, huge, long ponytail, kind of shaved on the sides, and he ended up leaving looking like a model. We convinced him to cut off years worth of hair, and man, did he just look sharp when he left the mansion. And he went home and immediately just started banging. I mean, his first day back, he ran 3 calls, closed all 3 calls, and generated $1,100 more in revenue in that one day than was his goal for the entire week. Think about that, guys. He had a goal for the entire week. I think it was like $7,500, and he ended up generating like $8,600 the very first day. And he was like, and I don't even have it down yet, Gene. Like I'm maybe only 25, 30, 40% of the way there. And, but isn't it amazing that they don't even have to use everything we've given them and they still start to see immediate success?
Yes, it's incredible. The danger for that. And I try to talk about, don't get complacent. Even if you've had some good results, continue. The results can just continue growing. One of the interviews, one of the guys, said he went from $5,000 in a month before he even thought about it he was like at 13,000 with another week to go. And you're thinking, well, that's an increase. Maybe the weather could have done that, but that's still a fourfold increase because, again, in 3 weeks, he's done triple the work. And then the next month, he does 82,000. I wish that video, I think we might, have been showing that a little bit or going to show that. I wish that had that down there and the following month over $82,000 from 5 to 13 to 20 to 80, and not a single piece of equipment sale in there. Because you could say he's HVAC, the weather turned, he started selling systems. That's not system sales. He is a tech that does not add that. He turns over those, and that doesn't count any of the revenue from system sales. It's even more.
If you had to guess, how much of that would have been IHU?
That was a big part of his ticket. So they were happening all the time. Of that 80, probably 60,000 was indoor air. Could have, 50 to 60.
That would have been my guess too, because I've seen some of his lists coming through in the group. For those of you that don't know, we actually have something called the Lead Ninja Mastermind, where we train twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays right before this podcast. And inside of those meetings, we're going over the objections that people run into, and we're sharing success stories as well. But inside of that group, our mastermind members will upload their lists and their sales. And so we get to constantly see what these lists look like. We get to make recommendations for modifications to make them stronger. And I'm just so proud of Darren. I really am. That's who you're talking about. And yes, we did get a testimonial from him at the mansion. My video crew was there, as you know. So we should be able to update his testimonials here pretty quick.
Well, he's got a wonderful story, and he committed to the process and studied. And we've got 3, 4, 5 guys out of this last class that just come out of the gates and are just committed to getting certified, learning the process. And we see those are the guys that have some of the better stories, some of the better successes. They've committed to it. And so today, like establishing the need, a lot of guys will come to or go to other sales courses or go to other gurus out there for whatever reason and ask for more help closing, handling objections. And we have those too. I admit that, there's structure for it. But one of the best ways to handle an objection is really to establish, get the customer to believe they have to do something about a problem. It's when the techniques you're trying to close and you're like, they don't work. It's because the customer doesn't believe they need to do anything about the problem. We're just wishing for a sale, not establishing the need. So I think that's what we decided we'd talk about today is how do we get that sense of urgency back? The weather's going for most of our guys, but what if the weather doesn't truly become our
ally?
Right? What if it's not? What if we look up and it's suddenly late August and still talking about mid-80s, something of that nature? I mean, mid-80s is hot in most of the country, but mid-80s is not where there's a line around your business just demanding.
Yeah, if you're talking HVAC, right?
Sure, exactly. So,
hey guys, before we get deep into this, if you would please, if you're watching this on a live stream, will you please put live down in the comments? And if you're watching it on a replay, will you please put replay in the comments? That would be a big deal for us. And also, we would love to know where you're checking in from. So your hometown, where is your hometown? Where are we getting all of our listeners from? I would certainly appreciate that. So, Don, you're talking about sense of urgency and why there's no sense of urgency. Did you want to say more about that?
Yeah, it's the big thing in our training. It's the first building block that we talk about is getting the client to come to their own conclusion that they have a problem. Not that they should buy your product, but that's often what salespeople think when we're talking about establishing the need. We have to tell them how great a product is. And that's not it at all. It's they have a problem and they have to come to the conclusion that they believe they have a problem, not I tell them they have a problem,
And the problem is significant enough to where they are going to come off of their wallet to fix it, not just a minor inconvenience or irritation, but a real problem.
Sure. And sometimes sometimes it's such a problem. Money's not becomes a second nature. I'm not living in these conditions,
Right.
For a plumber, it might be, I'm not going without water heater. I'm not going without hot water. For HVAC, it could be, we see a lot of the bacteria and the mold in the ductwork. That's, people see that and it moves them.
Right.
Absolutely moves them. Electricians is, unsafe conditions. I don't want my kids to potentially get shocked by this. So there's those situations that just move people tremendous. But what do we do when we can't quite get that? How do we get that sense of urgency when, it's okay. It's been like that for years, so to speak. How do we get that? And they have to come to their own conclusion that something needs to be done. People are naturally resistant to what people say. If you say you need this, they're going to say, "Oh, hold on there, Sonny. You ain't telling me what I need."
And not even so much what they need, but what they need to do, right? Like, audience, people out there that are listening right now, how do you feel when somebody tells you what you need to do? What is it? What's the little voice in your head say when somebody tells you, what do you need to do? Don't tell me what to do. F you. Those are the two that I hear the most often.
Right. You can't tell me what to do. Or our parents, when we were kids, our dad would say, our parents would say, you better be home by 11 o'clock. And what do we do? Come sneaking in about 11:30, thinking it was okay. And then, so even when we knew what we could do, we pushed the boundaries, right? We knew we could get away with an extra 10 or 15 minutes. So we would push the boundary. So our clients are the same way. They come through that same process. If we tell them this, you need to do this, they're going to say, yeah, I'll push it. I'll push it till I believe I have to do it, not you believe I have to do it. That's a big difference. No objection handling, no sales process will work for people who do not believe they have a problem or there's something that needs to be done. So
that's right.
Our first step is in our sales process is establishing the need for everything on the list. And for years, that's kind of what I would say, but it's kind of dawned on me through this process that it's so much more powerful that the client has to come to their own conclusion that there is a need for everything on the list. It's a little bit different saying there. And man, it's been powerful when you just slow down and only talk about the problem, not their solutions. Just talk about the problem with, chlorine in your water for a plumber, or not having a surge protector for an electrician, or not having or a system running with a capacitor that's under the tolerance. Just talk about the problem with it until they
ask for a solution, right?
So they ask for a solution. Yeah. And that could come in a couple of questions. What do we do about this problem? And it could sometimes get masked with, well, what's it going to cost to fix that problem? That's the same thing. When they ask for the price, when they ask for the solution, they're coming to their conclusion that I want to know more. Nobody asks the price for stuff they truly don't want. It doesn't matter. They're not going to ask the price for things when they don't believe they need it. So a little trick I like to say is the thing you're selling when you go on a service call is you're trying to convince them to ask you for the price. Yep. You want them to ask you for the price because that's a feedback that they came to their own conclusion that there's
a modicum of trust as well, because you don't go asking people for prices when you don't trust who that person is.
Yeah. That's very true. If you don't feel comfortable with the person, you're not going to ask their price. You're just going to say thanks and move on and go to a trusted person. So it's great feedback that you did your job. You've done your process here, that they trust you. They feel good about buying from you. That's a big part of what we want to talk about. But
So
how do we establish the need? That's for us,
Right.
a quick video in here. That's what we talked about. How do we get that going so that calls just become layups? We hear that a lot in the mastermind. They bought this, but I'm almost like embarrassed to tell you about it because it was so easy.
Right. Well, they're supposed to be easy. The client called you out there for a reason, okay? And usually it's us that will muck it up, right? Because we're talking too much or trying to educate the client. Don, when I travel the country, I'm constantly hearing the better guys, right? The ones that are doing $1 million, $1.5 million going, oh, I really like to educate my clients. And I'm telling you, you are really, really just, it's like sticking your foot out and blowing 3 or 4 toes off trying to educate people. Because in order to educate people, what do you have to do to them, Don? You got to talk at them.
You almost have to, you got to preach to them a little bit, or, just not having a conversation with them. You got to,
in school, when you were getting educated, what was the teacher doing at the front of the room?
Yeah, just talking constantly. And what were we doing? Just drifting off until they were asking me a question. I was like, oh, I'm not paying attention anymore. Right? Oh shit.
So guys, have you ever been at a customer's house or had them at your facility or with whatever you sell, and you're ready to be done with the conversation? Let's say a purchase has already happened and the client, this happens more, I find, Don, when people get up into the 65, 75, 85 range, especially if they're widowed, right? Mm-hmm. They'll just talk and talk and talk at you. Have you ever been in a position like that where your client was just talking and talking and talking and you really weren't listening? You even kind of faded out for a little while and then came back to the conversation, maybe didn't even hear everything that they were saying.
You almost want to check your phone, like,
to be listening. Oh, I got a call, right?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm supposed to be listening here. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Just to get them to stop. And it's because they're talking about things that you're not interested in or that you don't care about at all. So quick question. Do you think it's possible that happens when you're talking at your customers?
Sure.
Did you know that every word that comes out of your mouth is nothing more than an opportunity to screw it up? And so if that were the case, if every word that comes out of your mouth is nothing more than an opportunity to mess it up, wouldn't you want to limit the number of words that you say? And wouldn't you want to pre-plan what you were going to say about each and every item? Wouldn't it be foolish not to be tactical with your words? So what Don and I are talking about, how we get a client to come to their own conclusion that something needs to be done, is that we do still give them that education that you want, but we introduce it in the form of questions so that the client is interested and has to remain engaged. Quick question. What do you have to remain if somebody is talking to you or asking you questions? What does your brain have to do?
You want to listen to know how to respond, because you don't want to look like you're not paying attention, or you don't want to look like a fool, so to speak. You don't want to be embarrassed.
That would be embarrassing.
It'd be embarrassing. Yeah.
Right?
So I wasn't paying attention. What did you say? That's not a comment that anybody wants to really say. So if they know it's a question, they will listen just a little more intently. Again, remember in classroom, if the teacher says, Gene, and then ask you, as soon as you heard your name, you're like, I'm going to pay attention to this. Up to that point, it was just, again.
You were looking out the window at the swing set.
Yeah. Looking at the clock, how many more minutes do I have left in this class? That type of stuff was happening quite a bit. So how do we what questions do we ask? Because this is something that you've heard in sales all your life, is ask questions, and it's not the same meaning that we have here, right?
And nobody ever tells you what kind of questions to ask, Don.
Right.
They never tell you how to form the questions. What's a good question? What's a bad question?
Sure.
And most of the time, they don't even give you any questions to ask your client. They just tell you to ask the questions. So I'm like, great, I came to this seminar and I got what I already knew out of it and nothing else. Right? So
ask questions. Thanks. Yeah, appreciate that.
Don and I will turn our information into question form. For instance, one that we love talking about, just because it's so mainstream and everybody's heard of a surge protector, would be, here's a for instance, a piece of information that you might want to give them. And maybe you're not as geeky as me, but I'll actually do like Google searches wherever I'm at, whatever state I'm at, and I'll say how many cloud to ground lightning strikes per year are there in this state? Because we know that when we get lightning strikes, that causes surges and things like that. So I could tell the client, hey, we get over 1.8 million lightning strikes per year here in this area. And when that happens, we get in-home surges. Rather than just talking at them like that, we will ask them a question, and I'll have Don give you the 6 different ways that we turn statements into questions. But before I have him do that, I want to explain or share the purpose with you of why we're doing this. Would that be all right with you guys? Just give me a thumbs up or something like that on the stream, or say yes, or give it to me or something like that down in the comments. All right. Yeah. So here's the reason. And I'm gonna rely on you guys to go put those comments down there because that actually helps me. Okay, so please do that. So if I give you a question, for instance, I'm gonna give away the first one. Did you know? All I have to do is put "Did you know" on the beginning of a piece of information, and immediately the client knows that that's a question. Now, the reason I do it this way is because whenever you get a piece of information, I'm not sure if you knew this or not, but did you know that when you get a piece of information that your brain runs it through a BS meter? I call it a truth-false filter, right? Because when a piece of information comes in, you immediately make an assessment. You're like a meaning-making machine. You decide, is it true or false? And that leads to some fatigue, right? However, if you have somebody give you a piece of information, but it's in question form, it goes right around that truth-false filter, that BS meter. And your brain accepts it most times as enlightenment. It's like, ooh, no, I didn't know that. So that's one of the reasons that we do this. We want to get around the truth-false filter. We want to be able to ask the fewest number of questions possible in order to make the sale as well. Okay, so getting around the truth-false filter helps you to be able to control what your clients are thinking. Would you benefit from, or would you like to be able to control what your clients are thinking most of the time? Mm-hmm. Would that be of benefit to you and the client and your company? If so, you 100% want to get this step down. And I'm gonna roll a video for you here in just a couple seconds, after Don gives you these 6 different ways to turn statements into thought-provoking questions. And if you want more information on the next event, just put event or mansion down in the comments. And if you want more information on that twice-a-week training that we do, live training with all of our peeps, just put mastermind down in the comments. We'll get somebody to get you some information. But before you do that, Don, I gave the first one away. Did you know? Right? What are some other, well, maybe you could just, after that, maybe run through the full surge protection script, okay? So I'm going to step off camera for just 1 second because I hear a baby going crazy, but take over, Don, for just 1 second.
Yeah. Did you know? So you didn't know. Were you aware? So you weren't aware. Would you believe? Do you suppose? Now, say them again because they're so simple, but yet so powerful. If you just hear it, it might not retain. Go and write these down. Did you know? So you didn't know. Were you aware? So you weren't aware. Would you believe? Do you suppose? And I train it to do that in that order. Memorize them in that order. It forms a dendrite. Every time you say it, you're strengthening that thought and that memory. The brain is a muscle. You're strengthening it if you'll say it consistently. So did you know that we get over 800,000 cloud to ground lightning strikes in this area each year? Were you aware that when we get those, in-home power surges can occur? Were you aware that that's doing permanent and irreversible damage to your compressor? Would you believe that it can make your compressor and your fan motors glow cherry red on the inside? So that's about 3 or 4 little statements there that just string that together. It's different than just saying we get 800,000 and those cause in-home power surges, and it makes your motors glow cherry red on the inside. The questions engage people. It's very much
you want one.
very different. And again, we want to form that dendrite. Can you say those 6? If you're out there, say those 6 to yourself right now. Did you know? Say them with me. Did you know? So you didn't know. Were you aware? So you weren't aware. Would you believe? Do you suppose? And you will see that if you'll take the information you're puking on everybody to the point where they're like, oh, get that off of me.
Yep.
Change it to those leading words in front of the same thing. The engagement is incredible. You'll get people saying, no one has ever explained this to me before. And you'll be thinking, I explained it the same way last time. You just weren't, you weren't listening. You're right. They weren't listening because you didn't engage them. You didn't have a conversation with them. You had a sermon, and you got up there and got on your soapbox and just preached to the whole congregation, and they weren't always engaged with you, right? Did you know? So you didn't know. Were you aware? So you weren't aware.
Don, isn't this something that we have to do as trainers as well?
Obviously, you're incredibly good at that. If we can engage the people who are trying to learn, then with these questions, they'll learn so much better than just preaching at them. And you're the master at it. I am still a student after 7, 8, 10 years of doing this and training with you. I still learn and I'd like to believe get better every mansion event that we go to, that I get better and better.
Well, I will tell you and the audience that I did get some feedback on you this time versus last time. And they did say that you engaged the audience significantly more with your questions. So you're going in the right direction, homie.
That sounds great. That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it takes something, guys. Look, you began, did you or did you not begin to did you or did you not take the number of years that you're alive to get to this spot in your communication? Do you think that it's going to change overnight? Is it possible to get results without even major changes? Absolutely. But you just got to practice, right? It's like anything else. How many of you out there played baseball? How many ground balls did the coach hit you? Was it thousands? Was it hundreds? Was it tens of thousands? Did you know that they say that you got to do something about 10,000 times to become a master at it? So when would be a good time to begin to study this art that we call communication? How many questions did I just ask you in a row?
Absolutely. Everyone, it felt like. When would now be a good time to start? When would now be a good time to start? I like that. It's an Anthony Robbins, the way he likes to say that. When would now be a good time to start on the rest of your life? So, absolutely. Yeah, you ask a lot of questions, and you engage us with those questions. It's phenomenal.
I'm going to come back, and guys, we're going to wrap this up here in just a minute. If you've been interested about the mansion events, I'm about to roll a quick video for you here, and then we'll come back and kind of bring all this together. But the next event is in Gatlinburg, Tennessee at the Grand Elkmont Lodge. And we have got room for about 60 people at this space. It's a huge 18,000 square foot lodge out in the middle of the mountains on about 4 acres. Beautiful landscaping, brand spanking new facility. And they had built one of these over in Pigeon Forge, and they took that as kind of the test case and said, how do we make it better? And I'm going to tell you, this place is gorgeous. We're going to have a really, really great time. It's going to be September 29th through October 3rd. So mark your calendars now and at least reserve your seats now, okay? get it done, get it out of the way. When would be a good time to spend some of the profits, Don, that we're making in the summer?
Preparing for when the season slows down, getting ready, because when it gets harder, your skills level has to go up. So if you come out of the summer, you'll notice a lot of guys fall into a slump. And that's because they let their skill set actually diminish during the season because it got easier, right? If it gets to be 110 degrees in Alabama, you really can just show up at a house and people will just gladly take and pay you to fix that situation. But once the season changes and it's 75 degrees and you're out on a maintenance in September, suddenly their motivation's not there. And we have to bring that back with our questions. Did you know? So you didn't know. Were you aware? So you weren't aware. Would you believe?
Don't get me off track now. Don't get me off track. My brain is starting to go a different direction. One more thing about this event, and I'm going to go show you the video real quick. Guys, at this event, I'm going, especially if you bring multiple people, I'm actually going to be able to offer this to you cheaper than I have ever been able to offer a training session to, because we've got rooms that will house 3 of your guys or 3 people. So if you get one of those rooms that houses 3 people, it will be somewhere in the neighborhood of half of what it normally costs to come out to one of our events. It's one of the reasons we use this place. So now these are essentially pre-sale and pre-order. We haven't started putting the ads out on the internet for this. So from now until the time that the event is, the tickets will just continue to climb in price. So it benefits you to at least register and lock in your seat and put a deposit down now before it ends up being, costing you a significant amount more money. But take a quick look at the video and what some of the participants recently had to say about it, and we'll be right back to wrap this up.
If somebody was hesitant about coming to the Lead Ninja Mastermind, I'll tell them this. You can't afford not to go. It's going to change your life, but not only your life, your family's life.
You don't have to wait a year to start making the kind of money that you want to make. Corbin came out of here and within 30 days went from $250,000 to $500,000 in sales. So it doesn't take long as you put in the work.
The difference between others and this one's a lot more direct and a lot more informative in certain areas to help you overcome certain obstacles, where the other ones are just kind of broad for everybody. Last month, my total revenue for the month was only $5,200. We still have about 10 days left of the month, and I'm already at $13,500.
Yes, I have scripted out for you, word for word, exactly how to tell them about the money.
If you're struggling to get to that next level, this is the class that you need to be in.
So September 29th through October 3rd, guys, put Mansion down in the comments or event or something like that, and somebody will reach out to you and get you the information you need. Don, how do you want to bring this bad boy home today? Oh, wait. Before I let Don run off with it, if you're listening on Spotify right now or Apple Podcasts and you have not yet left us a review, man, that would mean the world to Don and I, and it would help us to get our message to other people. So if you'd mind not being super selfish and maybe taking like 2 minutes of your time when we take about an hour and a half of our time every week to serve you, man, that would mean the world to us. Don, go ahead and wrap it up, bud.
Stay talking about the problem. Quit talking about your products. That's really where establishing the need becomes. They have to feel like they have to move away from their problem more than they need to feel like they have to move towards your solution. We will move away from pain so much more quicker or readily than we will just for that move towards pleasure. And we think this is a kind of a entitled pleasure society or whatever you'd want to say, but it's the opposite. When we feel pain, we're not going to let that condition stay any longer. So stay talking about the problem until they ask, what do I do about it? Or what's the price? What's it going to cost to fix it? That's the big thing. Deliver all the information you've been delivering. Just deliver it in question formats. Hey, did you know this? So you weren't aware of that? Can you imagine not knowing about that? Would you believe? All of that are just engaging people with all the information you've housed for years. Change that one fact, and you could see a substantial increase in your sales this summer, and make a huge impact in your life. Those few things, those 6 ways to turn statements into question, will pay for your mansion trip right there. So go implement them. You'll earn enough in the next week, maybe 2, to be able to come join us and learn everything else about the Lead Ninja certification process. It's amazing. You're going to want to get there.
Don, you made me think about something when you're talking about selling the problem, and you're talking about how people will spend money faster to escape pain than to experience pleasure. And for years, we've heard about people selling comfort. Consider that comfort is really the absence or elimination of pain. Just consider that comfort is really the absence or the elimination of pain. And Don is right. People will spend money faster to escape their pains than to experience pleasures. But when they escape their pain, they start to experience comfort. So please begin to sell the problem. Focus on the pain points. Focus on the negative stuff, and get the client to ask you for a solution. And then last thing before I let you go, don't spend all day talking about your solution. 2 sentences tops, 1 or 2 sentences tops. Okay. Trust me on this. They wouldn't ask you for a solution if they weren't in pain. So short solution, and then give them 1 or 2 benefits potentially that it's, 1 or 2 changes it'll make in their life, and then just go for the close. Ask them if they're ready to move forward, right?
Sure.
They'll ask you for the money. Share the money with them. Keep it short. Keep it simple.
And you want me to take care of that while I'm here today is the easiest and one of the simplest ways to ask. It's a question, but we're stating it. We're stating it in the affirmative or the assuming they want to do something, and then you just say, "And you want me to go ahead and take care of that while I'm here today?"
Yeah, and I'm going to add to that too, because if you rewind the tape and you listen, Don's tone and inflection went up just a little bit at the end when he said today. You want to go down and deep. It's more of a statement than it is a question. It's definitely a question, and you want me to go ahead and take care of that for you today. Can you hear the difference? And you want me to go ahead and take care of that for you today? It doesn't sound certain. It's when I say, and you want me to go ahead and take care of that for you today. It's like I'm reading their mind. I know exactly what they want, and it's a simple yes. Don, thanks for coming on today. Look forward. You won't be here next week, right? Or is it just Tuesday?
Just Tuesday.
All right. Well, guys, we will catch you again on another episode of the Blackbelt Sales Podcast next Thursday. Thank you for tuning in. Please share the stream, smash that subscribe or that like button for us, and we'll see you next Thursday. See you, ninjas.